So it is August the 15th and we are just days away from the start of the 37th America's Cup cycle. First thing to come up will be the preliminary event, which starts in just a few days' time. I've just arrived here in Barcelona. I'm going to be here right the way through until the end of October, when the Cup will have been decided. Now, I've only been here a couple of days, but I'm pleased to say my first media engagement was to be given a tour of the INEOS Britannia team base. I've been here before, earlier on this year, to have a look, but of course now it's getting pretty real. Plus, I also was able to get hold of a few of the key crew members to get a taste of what's going on. We kick off with the man at the top, Ben Ainslie. Good to see you, Ben.
Likewise, Matt. You right?
I'm very well,
Good.
very well. It's funny, isn't it, this period in the Cup, because it takes such a long time to get to this stage. You go through the routine for years building up to it, and now we're just days away from it. Yeah. Do you have to sort of pinch yourself to make yourself think, hang on, we're about to actually start, or does it feel quite natural that, come on, let's just get on with it?
No, it's pretty natural. It's a bit like a marathon, really. You put it like that. You know, obviously it's a long old slog, a lot of work, huge amount of effort. I always say it's so hard to explain to people how much effort goes into designing and building and operating these things. But no, we're coming into the final mile now, and everyone's focused, knows what we need to do. Obviously, a huge amount of effort going into getting the boat race prepped, and excitement about that final push.
Is there a balance to be struck though between, on the one hand, everybody needs to appreciate the significance of what's about to happen. This is it. This is for real. On the other hand, you need to approach it like we just keep, sail as you, race as you train, train as you race, or whatever the expression is. It's it's striking that balance. That must be quite tricky.
Yeah, and it's a development game, of course. So we know that history tells us that the teams that are able to keep developing through the competition, keep learning, keep improving the performance, probably going to be the ones that end up on top at the end. So you can't just sort of say, right, draw a line in the sand, the boat is the boat, and we go out and just race and it'll be what it'll be. We've got to still keep developing, keep that in the back of our minds. So that's a balance you're constantly trying to find. But ultimately, when you get on the race course, at some point you're racing for keeps, and you can't afford to make any mistakes, and you've got to get decent starts, and your manoeuvres have got to be perfect, and. So, yeah, finding that right balance is key.
Last time around, you had to do an awful lot of development, as we know, because it was a pretty shocking start, as you kept saying at the time. It was quite clear that it was. How much more confident do you feel now? How are you in a much better place now than you were back then?
Yeah, we're in a much better place than we were in Auckland, certainly going into that Christmas race in Auckland. I think there's still some areas of our boat, I know that we can still make some big jumps in performance, and frankly we're going to need to if we're going to win this thing. It's hard, I can't speak for the other teams. To me it looks like some of the teams have been race ready for a while and really performing well, others maybe not so much. And again, that's going to be critical as we go through the next 2-3 weeks. Which teams are making some jumps, which teams are performing well. If they've got an advantage over the rest, how much faster are they? And you're going to bridge that gap, or you're going to cross over. So time will tell.
You've had a few days out there already now with some official practice racing. Tell us about that. What have you been doing? Have they been full-on practice races? Have they been practice starts? How does it all work?
Yeah, they've been one-lappers, so yeah, full-on start, and then when we're marked back down around the leeward gate and finish and go again. Hard to take a huge amount from it because it's been in very light airs. The start, as you'd expect, particularly in the lighter airs, the start's been critical, and the racing that we've done okay, we've done pretty well, but I wouldn't say that's really gives a strong feeling on our performance necessarily, because very little time on the same tack as the other boat. Again, the manoeuvres, be those tacks or jibes, have been really key. So yeah, I mean we've taken a lot from it, but I think people observing that, I wouldn't say that's necessarily a really strong guide on the performance.
You almost sound a bit disappointed that you were hoping for more out of the practice sessions than you've actually managed to
No,
get?
well, yes and no, because it depends how you look at it. If you think you're potentially in a strong spot, well, do you actually want to do that much racing? You know, I think there's been a lot of debate amongst the challenging teams. You know, should we be racing against a defender? Ultimately, I think you're not going to have any practice racing unless you allow the defender to turn up, because they're the ones mandating it in the first place. And I think you can learn a lot from them as well. So it works both ways. I think you just have to be very clear about how you want to approach it. What are you looking to learn from it? What are you, if you're going to hold anything back, understanding what that might be. And all of the teams will be playing that game to a certain extent. So that's why I sort of say, well, you always got to take it with a pinch of salt, because there's a lot more to it underneath it than meets the eye.
Going into the preliminary regatta, the third one, but the first in these boats, how much does that matter? Because on points, it doesn't matter at all, does it? It doesn't count towards the cup, towards challenger selection or anything. How important is it?
I think it's relatively important. You're right, the points don't count, but we're rapidly running out of time. There isn't really that much opportunity between the end of the prelim and the start of the round robins to make that many changes to your boat. So if you've got a significant issue, chances are you're not going to sort that out. And one team's going home on the 8th of September. That's going to be pretty brutal. And I think we're all there. All of the challenges, no one's taking that for granted. You want to make sure that's not you. So that's effectively, to answer your question. Yeah, prelim regatta is important in terms of making sure you're on the pace.
I mean, the whole cycle, this whole America's Cup cycle, it's about 2.5 months now, isn't it? And people say 2.5 months, but I mean, that's one of the shortest ones we've had in quite a while, isn't it? Does
it
go
by in a flash. Absolutely. And like I said, there's really little time between rounds to affect much change to the boat. So whereas in previous cups, we talked about the Christmas race in the last cup, we had, I think, almost a month between the Christmas race and the start of the Challenger Series. Luckily for us, we were able to, other than changing the hull of the boat, we pretty much changed up everything else. New rig, new sails, changed the foils, I think we even changed the rudder, put a boom on the boat, massive changes, and we saw that was a big jump in performance for us, got us to being, somewhat competitive. This time there's no time to make any serious changes like that. And also the class rules have changed, that the number of foils that teams are allowed, the ability to change. You can change between rounds, but trying to remeasure is not that simple in the time available. So yeah, again, you've got to make sure you're competitive from the off.
From your own point of view as a helmsman, apart from the obvious in that now you share the helm, which you didn't last time, how much has it changed? How different is it where you're sitting, hanging onto the wheel and pushing the buttons? How's your job changed?
Yeah, it's really different. It's really different. Credit to Luna Rosa in the last cup for making that work. Obviously, they'd been taking that approach for a while, but the communication's obviously the challenge there, because you're completely blind, well, relatively blind to what's going on the other side of the yacht. And so that communication with the other helm is really, really critical. And you've got to make some split-second decisions, and there'll be times when actually whoever's helming on that side of the boat, they've just got to use their own initiative and make that decision and get on with it. You haven't got time to have a debate about it. So yeah, really good relationship, good communications, that's the key to that.
And as far as pushing buttons and the data, one of the things that seems to have come out of this cycle is that, well, I say had come out of it, it's assumptions because we don't know what all the other teams are really doing. Yeah. But it does seem like the sort of information management, information management among the team has changed, doesn't it? With different people taking on different additional roles. Does it feel like that? Is this a different era of how to sail these boats if you're a crew member?
Yes and no. I can't say exactly what the other teams are doing, but my sort of understanding from observing them is some of them are actually quite similar to how they were laid out in Auckland. For us, it's slightly different, not hugely different, but slightly different in how we're running it. And each of the team has their own approach. They're making that work. There's a huge amount of effort, technology development that goes into the HMI, how the different crew members can input in controlling the boat. and how that all works together. And that'll be a big part of the relative performance of these boats.
How big a part has the simulator played this time?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, not just for the designers, they're coming up with different hull section shapes, foil shapes, aero concepts. That's a massive part of the simulation, but also for us as sailors, getting time in the sim, as we were talking about, looking at different control systems, for example, looking at practicing pre-starts, other areas of the race course, all that's done on the sim. So it's a massive tool. Without a decent operating sim, you're serious disadvantage in this game.
Especially because you could only have one boat as well this time. I guess that must have
well,
put a lot more.
175. Obviously, we've seen with the AC40s, that's been some of the teams have taken that approach of running two boat programs with the AC40s with great success. We took a different approach with our test boat and the partnership with Mercedes. So there's been some slightly different approaches there, but yeah, regardless, having the sim has been, whatever approach you've taken in that respect, having the sim is really key.
Sea state has been something we've talked about a lot over the last year, 18 months since some of the teams have been here. Would you say overall, teams, are you getting more used to it, or is it still the big sort of curveball that could come across the course?
I think it is a curveball. I mean, Mother Nature could well play a huge part in the outcome here, because certain teams will be more competitive in the big sea states than others, and also different wind ranges. That's what's always been a challenge with Barcelona, and we've known that since of course it was selected as the venue, but it has made it a really challenging venue from a design perspective for all of the teams, and it'll be fascinating to see how it plays out.
And would you say overall the emphasis here, I know I've sort of spoken to various teams about this over the last 18 months, 2 years, there was a great deal of focus initially about how much faster the boat's going to go, but it doesn't seem like the top speed is really the thing here. What the thing here is going to be taking off in low wind speed and being reliably staying on your foils and the rest of it. Would that be a fair assumption?
Yeah, mate. Well, it's always. I mean, that's always going to be a key. But I think if we see some racing in the high teens, low 20s, I think observers will be gobsmacked by the performance of these boats, particularly upwind. I'm not just talking about our team. I mean, all of the teams. The performance is mind blowing. I mean, you think, how's that even possible that a sailing yacht can reach numbers like that? It's really impressive.
Nice one. Well, thanks very much, Ben. Good luck with it all. We'll be watching. We'll be talking to you again.
Yeah, we'll do. Cheers, Matt.